that cut off a little earlier than I thought. I thought it was going to run longer. But hey, folks, welcome into the FFU channel. We are hosting a 1QB mock. It is myself and Jeremy Schulman. How you doing today, Jeremy?
Yeah, man, hanging in. It is 9 o'clock over here. I'm fading fast on a Friday, just like we all hoped would be the case when we were teenagers. So.
Right, I know. You said it was Friday. I was like, wait, I'm pretty sure it's Saturday. Like,
oh yeah, well, exactly. I don't even know what the hell day it is. So that just tells you, look, once you hit 40, life's over. So good luck. Everyone under 40, enjoy it while you still have it. We're doing mock drafts on a goddamn Saturday night.
We're old. What can I say? I'm like, yeah, I just definitely feel old. I'm not gonna lie. They're like, oh yeah, my wife's older than I am, but that's a lie. I'm older than her. I don't care what they say. Yeah, so we're doing a 1QB rookie mock draft for those of you new to the channel not doing this. We've been pumping out mocks pretty consistently last few weeks. We had an IDP mock draft that was pretty good last night. We did super fast last week, and we're gonna just keep rolling through the season as players and everything to adjust for you guys. What do you think the main difference for you in 1QB compared to super flexes for drafting?
Yeah, I mean, at the risk of sounding controversial, it's the quarterbacks, right? Like, look, I think a lot will become clearer in the next week here as soon as the combine, we run through that and rookie season really hits kind of peak hype. But at the moment, we're talking about, we have those top three guys. They're likely going in the first 6 picks. Where does the fourth guy go? Is the fourth guy JJ McCarthy? Depending on who you ask, that may change. But, for most people at this point, it is. Hopefully it stays that way, right? But it's kind of where are those quarterbacks? Where do they fall? And when you're a 1QB, right, it's the same question. Where do the quarterbacks fall? How early are you taking Caleb Williams? How early, how many QBs sneak into the back end of the first round? So it's the quarterbacks for sure.
And as you can tell, Aaron's very much into the cutting edge QBs. Yep,
absolutely.
Yeah, I was in a mock yesterday, and I took Caleb Williams at the 106 and 1QB. So that's kind of where my spot is with it. But let's pull up this draft board, see what everybody's looking at. As you can tell, sleeper. It's that's what we love to use. It's easiest for everybody. So, what do you say? You want to kick this bad boy off?
Let's do it, man.
All right, let's start the draft. So here we go. All right, so straight out of the gate, we have Troy Franklin, number 2. Interesting. That's a new one. I've never seen that before. So yeah, we're already starting out hot here. It's flying pretty fastly. Right to you, Jeremy. And there goes Caleb. So all right, so you have these first 5 picks. How do you feel about these picks in order?
Yeah, Franklin is kind of ridiculous there. That's a bit of the bot going on. I think for me, I'm wondering. Again, it's early. But wondering between Troy Franklin as my wide receiver 4 or somebody like Xavier Worthy, who I'm higher on than some. Some people like BTJ there. Some people like who am I missing? Is it Ladd can be up there? Keon Coleman was one earlier on. But for me here, given the way the board has fallen out, the 106 is a pretty much a no-brainer. I'm going to go ahead and hit it. It's Rome Odunze. He's like that last guy that we hope, is going to dominate and become a dynasty wide receiver 1.
Yeah, I think that's just a surefire bet. Like if you're getting him at 106 and 1QB, like we're talking about him being 106, 107 super flex. So getting him at that spot 1QB is just like a major win.
Yeah.
Considering the level of talent wide receivers run. I know some people are lower on him than others. Like we have Worthy, he goes right after him, but like I think he's a stud. There's a big tier top 3 for me, and that's not everyone's the case, but like I love those 3 wide receivers. If I come away with any one of those 3, it's like drafts this year, I'm thrilled.
Absolutely. So you're almost on the clock here at 109. What are you thinking as we wait for the 108 pick to come in?
Well, it's interesting, right? Like this was my decision in the 1QB draft last night where I was looking at the players available and the elite guys were gone. So Bowers a tight end and the big 3 wide receivers were gone. And at that point, I'm fine pulling the trigger on a quarterback just because like Jaden Daniels, who's more than likely is going to be the pick. Yeah. So Drake May just went at 108, which is interesting. I could go Brian Thomas, but he really only has 1 good year of production. He scares the crap out of me. He's a deep threat. Like I think there's serious holes in his game. I think Ladd McConkey's a much safer player. Then we get Tez Walker, we got Keon Coleman. But like as you can see, and you go down this list of like wide receivers, there's a giant tier of them. And also the same thing with running backs. Like I don't I don't really want to be the guy taking the first in a big tier. So if I'm doing that with wide receiver or taking the RB1 here, ideally, if we were trading and I was like in like a rookie draft startup, I'd trade back. So I would go look to trade back in like 4 or 5 spots, right, to get to the end of that tier. But I don't even see Jaden Daniels on this list. So this is interesting. I'm just gonna type him in because that's the guy I'm gonna take. But yeah, so FYI, the rankings are a little off. They have Jaden Daniels 798 here. So pay attention to your boards if you guys are drafting right now. But in 1QB, like I want the true difference maker, and I see Jaden Daniels as being a monumental guy with massive upside. So I'm gonna swing here for Jaden Daniels and kind of leave the other guys to pick and choose who they want in those tiers. And then as you can see, Brian Thomas, Lab McConkey, they go back to back, which interestingly enough, like Lad McConkey's getting pumped up a ton. Where are you at with Lad?
Yeah, I think early in the process, I looked at his film, and he was a guy who did everything really well. The problem was he's smaller than you want him to be, and he's slower than you want him to be. It doesn't really matter if he's able to cook DBs at the next level. I think that's really he separate with ultra consistency, which is what we're looking for with him. You hope he can, and I think the combine will reveal some of that even more than the Senior Bowl did. So we'll see. But yeah, I like him as a back end of the first round talent for sure, especially in 1QB.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Where are you leaning with this pick right now?
Yeah, I mean, Keon Coleman is falling a bit too far. It's between him, who I think he's the term that you always love to use, a big old mystery box at the moment. Jordan Travis wasn't exactly lights out in Florida State. And then, of course, you have the fact that he was injured there. So it's between him and a couple other guys. But since I only have 5 seconds on the clock, I'm going to punch that ticket and just, hope that, he lands in a good situation, because he has enough of the tools where I think he can become a solid wide receiver too on an NFL team.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, I think he's interesting. Like, there's a lot to like about him, but there's also like the other aspect where there's a lot we don't like just because of his profile and everything of that nature. So yeah, it's a good swing at this point. Like 206 and like 1QB, it really starts dropping off here. Like we get into the more question mark players. There's still a lot of guys I like, but if you're chasing the elite traits, like this is the perfect spot to pull the trigger on those guys. And of course, Fosbury took my dude, Bucky Irving. I saw his name. I didn't think he was going to make it back to me. I was like, come on. And then there goes Corum. So I think this point we can kind of see it's a really good option. Like you can take the wide receiver, the running back of your choice. I have no idea why Jermaine Burton is this high in rookie mocks. Like it makes no sense. Like he's a pure burner. I would much rather go Roman Wilson, Jalen McMillan, and even Ricky Pierce all over him, who I really like. So I'm interested because I just saw him. Where did he go? I like Jacob Cowling, but I'm looking for a running back. Where is Marshawn Lloyd? Because that's the guy I'm probably going to take here. I guess I'll just have to search manually.
Yeah.
So as you can tell, the ADP is really off. I'm just gonna highlight it there. But with this point of the draft and the players available, like, I'm not super high on a lot of these guys. I'm more comfortable pulling the trigger on running backs in this spot. The other guy who I really like later on is Jacob Cowling, but he always falls. People are really low on him. So I'm just going to take the running back who I think gives me the best shot to hit a high range of outcome, and that's Marshawn Lloyd.
Nice. In terms of how this second round is shaken out now, with, we had no running backs in the first round. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the second round. Do you think that this is going to maintain in 1QB, right? In Superflex, we've been talking about it for a while, but in 1QB, no running backs in the first round. That seems a little excessive, don't you think?
Yeah, like I get the feeling whoever gets that draft capital in the dream landing spot, like if somebody goes to the Chargers and is like a day 2 guy, like they're going to get pumped up. I'm actually going to pause this draft really quick so we can kind of recap. So let's look at the second round real quick. We had Trey Branson go 201, Jatavion Sanders, tight end out of Texas, 202. Jonathan Brooks, the running back out of Texas, 203. You got Tez Walker at 204, Xavier Leggett, wide receiver, 205. Your guy Keon Coleman, 206. And then we had the running back run, Bucky Irving, Blake Corum, Marshawn Lloyd, 27, 28, 29. Interestingly enough, the Stover pick at 210s, I'm kind of surprised they picked them there, but that, that's computer. They kind of do something like that because I don't expect him to be a second round pick. So we'll see. Somebody took a swing at Penix at 211, and then Roman Wilson. That's a great pick for Aaron at 212. How do you kind of feel about the second round overall?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely got to be hammering those running backs if they fall. But I think the second round of 1QB is where you can soak up value. I'm going to let, whoever wants to take those swings on Jatavian Sanders, Tez Walker, and Xavier Legette. Those kind of profiles for me are, hyper athletic, or, in Walker's case, like hyper tall contested catch ability type guys. Super fast, super athletic guys don't always translate. We talk about kind of the difference between a Lad McConkey and Xavier Legette, right? Do you want the ultra toolsy guy, or do you want the guy who just has the ability to win? It's, for me, it's the reason why Tim Tebow stuck around in the NFL for so long. The dude just won. He had, not necessarily the NFL level, but he had that mentality, right? And he had the, dominated in college football. So it didn't work out for him because he just wasn't talented enough. But if you have these guys who are not elite but talented enough, and they have that winning mentality, I mean, it's why you see Lad kind of going over some of these guys. Will that maintain after the combine? I don't know.
Yeah. I think the combine is going to shift a lot of these values. Like, this is kind of where we've settled at the time. In a couple of days, we're going to get guys that are jumping out of the gym running 4.3, and they're just going to rise just because people love athletic freaks in the NFL, because it gives them a skill set that not everyone has, right? So it's like, that's why you'll see Jermaine Burton get drafted, because he can fly, and he might not be the best overall wide receiver. And this is kind of where we have to differentiate between fantasy and NFL, because sometimes those are not so aligned. Like, teams are searching for one thing, we're looking for fantasy points. Some of these guys are just good at being fast, right? So that's kind of the takeaway we have to keep in mind. As we get to the third round, like, we had Bo Nix go 301, Braylon Allen 302, Audric Estim, who I think is a really good value, 3-3, Ray Davis 3-4, Dalton Hooker, the tight end out of Colorado State, is interesting at 3-5, and then I guess we'll kick it back off to you 306. See what you're thinking.
Yeah, there's so many guys. I mean, Dylan Lobby, I think is just, as a receiver, is really going to be a guy who, if he goes, round 4, even early round 5, I'm going to be really interested to see where he lands. And, if there's a role for him and a way for him to be used. I think this is a good spot to take him. I like him more than I like Will Shipley. And I can't really tell Jace McClellan. I mean, there's not too many other running backs at this point that I'm really super excited about, but just because I want to talk about him, and just because, he's been my guy, even though I'm trying to find him, here he is. I'm going to take Ben Sinnott out of Kansas State. I really think this is the tight end too, when all is said and done, even over Sanders. I just think, from his Senior Bowl showing, to the tape he put out in college, even though it was against lesser competition, this guy has all the makings of, Sam Laporta-esque, type of tight end. Will he find the situation and like the ultra success that Laporta has already? I don't know. But, if he goes to a system where he's used in an interesting way and given an opportunity, I think he can succeed.
Yeah, and you see, like, Hunter in the chat said he loves Sinai, said he would take him if Estim wasn't there. And it makes sense. Like, these are people taking good values in that range of time. So, like, this is what it all comes down to, right? Like, we have tiers that we're picking from, and ideally, like, you get guys that fall in the tier and it comes a perfect spot for you. It's like, that's where you pull the trigger. So I'm 100% with it. It's interesting. We have a chat from Roman. He's asking, so Daniels or May for you guys? I mean, personally, like, I'm going for fantasy football, and Jaden Daniels just has the higher ceiling for fantasy football. I think Drake May is kind of getting disrespected to the point where people are just kind of crapping all over him in the process, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Yeah. So for me, like, personally, I've had Jaden Daniels in my 102, like, above the wide receivers for a long period of time. So I've kind of been there. Drake May, he's just a good NFL player. And if he's going to get the draft capital, which, like, he gets, like, I think he's a nice consolation prize in this draft, where you're sitting in Superflex, like the 103 through 106, he kind of falls. If you're sitting at 106, you get Drake May. Like, I have no other reason except just be stacked, right? You're like, yes, I got a good quarterback who has potential. It might not work out. Like, sometimes that happens, but you're getting the guy with a lot of tools who's a good player. So I think, personally, where are those two for you? Like, are you Drake May or are you Jaden Daniels?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those that fluctuates back and forth. Like for me, I was high on Stroud early in the process. At the end, because Bryce Young went number one, ended up with Young over Stroud. So I'm gonna try not to make that kind of same mistake and trust my instincts. At the moment, it's Daniels over May, but it's a little closer than I'd like to believe. I think.
Yeah, because Aaron in the comments is saying he likes JJ over both, and he's just like he's such a mystery box, man. Like
Yep.
I
Jesse, you
can't
got
take him that
2
early.
seconds
Yep.
here.
Yep, I saw it.
Yeah.
So like I'm taking my guy Jalen McMillan.
Yeah.
He's just a good NFL slot wide receiver who has plus assets. Like he play kind of the vertical slot. So I think for some reason the community is a lot lower on like Pearsall and McMillan, and I don't like that's my biggest disconnect from the community. Like I'm really high on those guys. Both are top 10 wide receivers for me, and like people have them falling out. It's like the top 20. So I don't. I guess it's just where I guess that value for me, and maybe I'm crazy and they're not good, but overall, like I like both those guys a lot. Let's hold on one second. Why don't you recap this third round for us?
Yeah, no worries. So starting with the 301, we have Bo Nix. Braylon Allen went next. So we have a string of 3 running backs: Allen, Estime, and Ray Davis. Then afterwards, we have a bot selection and Dallin Holker, followed by my pick of Ben Sinnott, which we talked about. Ricky Pearsall, Johnny Wilson, and then Jalen McMillan, the 3 of those guys in a row. That value seems correct to me, except I just wonder about Wilson and where he's going to thrive. So we'll talk about him in a minute. JJ McCarthy, who was just an oversight for me. I think if you flop McCarthy and Penix, the 211 with the 310, I think that just makes a ton of sense in how things will actually shake out. And then to finalize the draft, we have Theo Johnson at 311 and Malachi Corley, Debo Light at 312. Yeah. So what do you think, Jesse? How did that shake out for you? And what do you think about those values?
So I think Aaron took all advantage of the board, the 212 and the 312, because Malachi Corley, he's just a fun player. You watch his tape and you're like, I get why people comp him to Debo. I don't know if he's that good of a wide receiver. That's my question mark with him. Obviously, if he is, then yeah, you're getting a similar player. But he's a tank. He's a lot of fun to watch. But him getting Roman Wilson at 212, I think is really good value also, just because you're getting an NFL player who's going to step in day one, be ready. He could do a lot of things for an NFL offense. So I think he's a fun player. I like some of these, like with the computers, it's kind of hard, pick their drafts. But I agree, like Penix and McCarthy should be flip flop. I was actually contemplating McCarthy earlier in the draft, but that I like Lloyd enough. I'm not going to pass on Lloyd for McCarthy. Just specifically one QB. Like I already took Jaden Daniels, so at that point, I'm not going to draft another and roster a bunch of QBs and one QBs. It just doesn't make sense. So overall, I think a lot of these are pretty good. How do you feel about your draft overall? Going Odunze, Coleman, and then Sinnott?
Yeah, like we talked about, I think Odunze was the value. If I had to do it over again, I'm not super high on Coleman, so I may have gone with a running back there. But with Benson and Brooks already off the board, I don't hate it. Maybe JJ McCarthy there at the 2-6 instead might work for me. And then, it was between Sinnott and Pearsall in the 3rd round for me. So overall, not bad. I give myself a B.
Yeah, Pearsall is really fun. Like I saw what's his name? I can't believe they said he was like a top 5 wide receiver in the class, and I was like, dude, I have him top 10. And I thought that was bold. But he said top 5, and I was like, oh my gosh, top 5. I was like, damn, dude, somebody is really high on him. So yeah, I think there's we continually have this thing with these drafts where these wide receivers fall because there's so many good wide receivers in this draft. Like I could go like 20 wide receivers deep where I'd be happy having them on like my fantasy roster. Obviously, they're not all going to hit. That's just not how it works. But that's by far the strength of this class. So, if you come away with a bunch of wide receivers in your rookie drafts, don't be disappointed because this is one of the better wide receiver classes we've seen in a long time. It's got high-end talent, and then it's just stacked with talent for rounds and rounds and rounds. Obviously, the draft is going to, sort through some of these guys, but it's not a bad year to just target wide receiver nonstop. If you can't get the truly elites or, guys don't fall right to you, just take the wide receiver. Like there's a lot of good value there.
How about 2 or 3 names who didn't get drafted here who you think could find their way into the 3rd round?
So it's the guy that I'm really high on. It's Jacob Cowing. He has one of the best individual seasons from a wide receiver in this draft class. He obviously transferred to Arizona later in his career, but the guy jumped out his junior year. He just went off the charts. I think it was UTEP. he had a monster year. He fits well. He's another like short 8-out player who's going to play in the slot. He's smaller. He's like similar size to Hollywood. I just don't think he's as fast as Hollywood, but he is that size and Tank Dell size as well, where he's just a nightmare in space, like because he runs these quick little short routes and he finds a way to get open. So if you're finding this guy in the 4th round of your rookie drafts, like I think that's a monumental win because NFL teams like players that get open, and he's a guy that can continually win and get open for your NFL team. So he's going to find a way to get on a roster, right? I think he's a good value. You could talk about some of these running backs that didn't get drafted because we had 2, 4, 6. Like we only had 8 running backs drafted, which is interesting, right? Yeah. So we talked about like I don't think anyone took Labe, right? No, like I think Dylan Labe is another good one. And there's a couple other guys too. But are there any like 1 or 2 players that stood out to you that did not get drafted?
Yeah, I was surprised about Labe. Aaron also mentioned Will Shipley. I mean, for I think as potentially limited as he may be at the next level, he's still a really good pass catcher. He's still got the opportunity to develop. So I like him as well. And then 2 receivers. First of all, Jamari Thrash is a massive one. I mean, he's getting a lot of hype lately in certain circles. Like his tape, like the way that he runs out there. So he's a good one. And then Malik Washington is another one who you're just interested to see kind of how they test and how the NFL views these guys. But again, if they're going to be, 4th, 5th round draft capital in the NFL, they're going to be guys who I'm willing to take a shot on a 3rd round in the rookie draft.
Yeah, I'm looking on my phone and seeing the list of players. I'm really surprised that Brendan Rice and Jalen Polk they didn't get drafted either. Like, I think Polk's a much better player than Rice, but Rice has that name cachet where we talk about where people know who he is because he's the son of the greatest wide receiver of all time, right? Yeah. So, and he's a big, fast wide receiver. But both those guys stand out when I'm looking at the board on like the players that are available. Like they're top of the list. Like they're guys that are going to get drafted and they're going to have past to productive NFL careers. And now that might not work out, but. Yep, Hunter's nailed it. It's Polk. Like I personally like McMillan more than Polk, but a lot of people like Polk because he's just a good overall wide receiver. We could see that Washington offense, all 3 of those wide receivers. It might have been the best wide receiver like core in college football this year. Like that's how good that wide receiver room was. I know everybody loves Ohio State and stuff like that, but these guys were awesome. And the word is Polk's probably going to be the day 2 guy. McMillan might be as well. So you're getting quality wide receiver who could do a lot for an NFL team. So yeah, that definitely stands out. Those are kind of a few of the guys that stand out. There's other guys too, but we could do this all day talking about these 50 wide receivers that we like in this class. So what's your favorite? Like, what's your favorite draft of all the drafts?
What do you mean? Sorry,
like whose team? Sorry, whose team is your favorite team?
Oh, okay. Yeah, just looking through here. You got to like Hunter's draft from the 103. You pick up Neighbors there, which I think Neighbors is consensus 1-2 at the moment. So that's a steal. Then you come back around with Brooks, who I know we both agree he's a RB1 if he doesn't get hurt. He may still be RB1 even though he's recovering. I know you kind of have a different take on that. But he's kind of everything you want. And you hope that when he comes back, he's able to retain most, if not all, of those skills because the tape looked phenomenal. And then Esteem in the 3rd is a good shout. I think he's not as fluid as I would like him to be as a running back, but he's a big guy, right? So you always get those traits in concert. And when you do, the guy taken right before him, Braylon Allen, doesn't always come together the way you want it to come together. So that's a good shot in the 3rd for sure. So I like Hunter's draft. And then, you can't hate on Fosbury from the 107 with Xavier Worthy, who's my guy. And I think he's just going to continue to rise. 1-7, I think, is probably right where he's going to end up. Consensus. Then you have Bucky Irving at the 2-7 and Pearsall to round it out. So that's a really solid one too. So those 2 for me are great. How about yours?
Yeah, I really like Fosbury because he's got 2 of my guys in the 2nd and 3rd round. So of course I'm gonna be very partial to that. Where I'm like Bucky Irving. I love myself some Bucky Irving and Ricky Pearsall. Like this is a guy we were talking about earlier. Like I think he's a very good potential NFL wide receiver. I think Aaron nailed it being at the 112. It's usually not a great spot to be, but he just took the best value he could. So I'm not super high on Mitchell, but overall getting Mitchell there, coming back with Roman Wilson. then getting Malachi Corley. Like you're getting 3 guys with paths to being fantasy relevant players in the future. And at the 112 in the rookie drafts, like that's money in 1 QB. So if you can nail that, like that's just taking the board and letting it come to you. You know, obviously, if we were doing this with drafts, we'd be trading up and things of that nature. But I think Aaron did the best with the value that was given to him. Mm-hmm. I like run 13 actually going for Wilson in the 3rd round, just because if you're chasing tight end here, like he has some serious upside as a wide receiver, just because he is a massive individual. He's like, he stands out. That's how big he is. Like you see tape of him on the field, you're like, that dude is ginormous. And he's only going to get bigger if he does transition tight end, which we all expect him to. So I think those 2 both stood out to me. But overall, like it's a fun draft. Like this is why I like doing these. It kind of gives us an idea of where values go and where we see them going. So like you'll see, we'll probably do this next week after the combine, and you'll see these values completely change all over the place. So it's going to be interesting to see. But, yeah. Absolutely. All right. He said he kept getting sniped too. So it'd be like that at the 112, my friend. It'd be like that, but it's all good. Yeah. All right. So I think that's gonna do it for this rookie mock draft. I want to thank you all for joining us on the channel. You know, like and subscribe, like they always say. We'll keep pumping out these videos the more you guys like it. So for myself, Jeremy, thank you for joining us. And yeah, I hope you all enjoy the rest of your weekend. Tomorrow we'll be running a super flex mock draft. So you see my ugly face once again, you just got to deal with it. Such is life, right? So we look forward to seeing y'all tomorrow, and hope y'all have a good day.